Alright, another video that I really wanted to, well, fucking this shit interests me a great lot, which is Pyramids of Giza. A video I found is called Unexplained, Anomalies on the Giza Plateau. I'll have to...
When one explores the most fascinating and ancient of structures resting all over our planet, you will inevitably be confronted by baffling feats on...
Just quickly again, you see lots of fucking shit on this, blah 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 blah. I watch 10 videos, I get 10 different stories. So basically this one just points out some very interesting fucking things that really makes you wonder, what the fuck were these guys back in the day capable of doing? And it's very interesting. Like, for example, these rocks he's about to talk about that are perfectly, you cannot even get a piece of paper, A4 piece of paper, just like it. And yeah, it.
On engineering and ingenuity, tasks that to modern man escape understanding or indeed explanation. The main consensus regarding these ancient structures has always been a tricky thing to explain. To claim that these marvelous structures were built by primitive people with only primitive tools at their disposal does not only seem absurd to most who have visited such sites, but ignorant of their true past grandeur and the specific characteristics of each of these places. Ancient sites, such as Giza, Machu Picchu, among many others, still contain very confusing...
Look at the people. Look how small those people are to those blocks. Like, back in primary school, I was told that there were slaves that carried them with fucking ropes. Like, no, that is not possible. Because there was another thing I read, that if that was the way that it was, they would have had to have built a fucking massive ramp that would have been no more than 10-degree angle. Like, you have to pull those heavy fucking stones up there. Where's the bridge? The ramp would have taken a lot longer, you know, and then you would have had to slowly, well, you would have had to go up. So yeah, it's
confusing artifacts, anomalous evidence, which tells a very different story to that of mainstream history. Apart from the Baghdad Battery, largely claimed to have been an ancient form of electroplating, there has been little in the way of physical evidence to suggest the use of electricity within the academically researched ancient times.
Now again, electricity. There's probably a much simpler way to get power, like from example, solar power, sun. Maybe there was a much easier way, but I'm sure that people that know there's a much easier way to achieve the same electricity fucking thingy that we have. But let's imagine for a second that they were to tell us about that, then we wouldn't be paying for electricity, so that would be big cut in modern civilization's scams.
Yet there are many remnants left which suggest such activities. Not only are there countless clear examples of past machine-work stone, but most importantly, there is evidence of errors made by these same tools, misstarts, and discovered fault lines.
Yeah.
These particular stones discarded, laid bare in the quarries, revealing all the hallmarks of the machine engineering that went into building these wonderful places, these artifacts, once rubbish, now historical treasures. They can tell you the shape and movements of the tools that were being used, showing just how these machines cut into the stones, core drillings also discarded during manufacture, and cut stones discarded due to faults and cracks, revealing the complete preliminary cut marks left by the ancient stonecutters. These fragments of past activities are clearly some of the most important in unraveling these sites.
Yeah, look at that. I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, that might be granite, which is not an easy thing to cut through, and they try and say that you just have little chisels and fucking hammers to... No. I'm sorry, that's something that's spinning at a very high RPM. It has to be run by some sort. Yeah, it's
ultimate secrets. Yet it is rarely shared in the public arena, and even less frequently researched by official bodies. Along with this vast and
it leads down the bottom left. Fucking rubbish, man.
Perplexing array of remnants, mercilessly left where they fell, strewn amongst the debris of disruption, lay countless extremely hardy machine stone jars, vessels made from some of the hardest rocks on Earth. Some of these jars were made with a round bottom, perfectly machined, balanced on a base no bigger than the tip of a chicken's egg. Sir William Flinders Petrie ultimately realized that only lathe turning could have produced the symmetry and balance found on thousands of these bowls and vases. And Petrie was no fool. In 1894, he founded his own archaeological body, the Egyptian Research Account, which later became the British School of Archaeology in Egypt. He stated, for example, a bowl maker attained curves of exact circularity by rotating the bowl around a fixed blade, and formed a lip by shifting the centering of the bowl. Another round-bottomed vase had walls of such uniform thickness that it balanced perfectly on a curved base. To have a very well-respected researcher and specialist of the ancient Egyptians to admit to a conviction of the use of power tools in these pots construction seems like quite a stunning position to take, especially when one considers that while metal chisels could have been used to shape soft limestone within ancient Egyptian times, the metals that were available to them, copper, bronze, and during the first millennium BCE, wrought iron, were far too soft to work such rock into such exquisite designs. It seems Petrie would like to remain honest regarding his conclusions, yet also incomplete with his explanations.
It doesn't take genius to realize that. As much as everybody doesn't want to, it's like they explained it in the video. They can't explain how they've done this back then so far away. So they'd rather just push that shit away. Oh, next question. Nah. How the fuck? Like,
preferring to let the receiver of said information make their own realizations, preferring to avoid complication by a, by this time, rather visible enemy. One could only conclude that these relics and ancient monuments thereof were not the work of the Egyptians, but further evidence to suggest that these baffling structures were built far before the ancient Egyptians, before academic understandings, by a highly technologically advanced pre-cataclysm civilization. We find it difficult to see how such work was undertaken, or an explanation for our finding can be made without the use of power tools. Thankfully, the more we learn regarding these enigmatic places, the more we become aware of regarding their true history, and the closer, it seems, we become to finding those who built them. When asked what are the largest, heaviest, and indeed the once most difficult stones to ever have been cut, transported to, and precisely placed within the great structures of the Giza Plateau, we would have previously stated that the granite ceiling blocks found within the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid were the largest known, with some of these stones weighing as much as 100 tons. 100 tons. However, it turns out that there exist many other stones upon this mysteriously created plateau, which far exceed the pyramid's inner megaliths. Unsurprisingly, these discoveries are rarely shared academically, or indeed to the many people who pay to visit the Giza Plateau each year. The Valley Temple is but one example of these other, less mentioned, marvelously enormous stones, 8 of which are still present within the structure's ruin, the largest of which still being roughly 3 by 3 by 6 meters in size. Furthermore,
let me just jump back.
One example of these other, less mentioned, marvelously enormous stones, 8 of which are still present within the structure's ruin, the largest of which still being...
This stone, you would usually just have a, I don't know how it's going to look on the camera, sharp angle like that. No, this other stone curves, and then that fitted other stones. And this one here as well. That makes you really wonder. Like this one up above, perfectly straight. That's what you do when you're on two. Just start splitting them at a 90-degree angle. No. It's amazing.
Being roughly 3 by 3 by 6 meters in size.
I'm just gonna have to quickly check. Is this on fucking HD? Because yeah, good. I was about to say, fuck this TV. Anyway.
Furthermore, the same similarly sized stones can also be found within the Khafre Pyramid Causeway Temple. The structure is also rarely discussed or shared by Egyptologists or archaeologists alike. It seems that academics who fear a loss of funding from particular bodies tend to merely ignore that which they are confronted with, which they simply cannot.
So I could be wrong, but I'm guessing they're saying like these rocks are all in front of this main rock behind, so I'm guessing there must have been inner layer and then an outer layer of other little ones.
Explain. Again, the same enigmatic megalithic blocks can be found in the Causeway Temple of the Mycerinus Pyramid. One finds the same highly eroded, thus extremely ancient stones. It seems that these huge stones seemingly litter the Giza complex, and amazingly, they are successfully ignored merely due to their controversy. Yet the largest to be found anywhere upon this man-made plateau.
Now I'd like to see a close-up. See how you've got the bottom part of the pyramid and it's all crusty, different. Then you've got these lines. Then you have this nice smooth part. I'd like to get a close-up of that because that's obviously why they now say that it did have a outer crust, like something. I'll see if I can find a picture if I remember to put it in, but it's fuck's going on here, you know, like.
Are to be found hidden in plain sight.
The fuck.
Overlooked for many millennia.
Yeah.
The still remaining foundation stones upon which.
This is not a concrete path. That's what I'm saying. Dig. What else?
Much of the east side of the Khafre Pyramid once stood were not lifted into place, but were indeed transported to this location and precisely placed into position. These stones are so massive and so perfectly dropped into the surrounding landscape that thousands of people have walked right over them every year without ever realizing what they were standing on.
Yep.
Although the true depth and thus complete scale of the block is currently unknown, if it is of a cubic shape, it would appear to be roughly 3/4 the weight of the pregnant woman of Baalbek. She weighs around 1,001 tons, which would make our foundation stone anywhere from 500 to 750 tons in weight. Clearly, a controversial yet incredible discovery, one which takes our understandings of the sheer undertaking that was Giza are still at an early stage. Nonetheless, such discoveries move us one step closer towards finally understanding just who could have built the great.
You can see, obviously, that I'm guessing from that must have been perfectly smooth. But then again, I don't know.
Great Pyramid Complex of Egypt. Many ancient sites found all over the world can no longer be explained away with currently attested.
Now what? Maybe they put the block there. This one chipped. Does he cut it? So he's cut that perfectly out. Maybe then someone's just put that in. It's possible.
Academic opinion. Who they say built them, why, or when they were created. The most popular of these anomalies are the ancient monuments that can be found upon the Giza Plateau. Currently explained as having been built by our copper tool-wielding ancestors a mere 4,000 years ago, somehow successfully creating some of the most precisely built and indeed enormous ancient structures found on Earth, decidedly choosing to use granite blocks many tons in weight as their building material of choice.
Which you would have had to have had some sort of knowledge for a long time to realize that granite would be the perfect thing. It can't just be a chance that they went, this one's shit, this one's shit, this one's alright, and it happened to be...
Ironically...
What the fuck is this? This looks like a fucking garden shed. Is this a fucking garden shed in the middle there?
Although these sites are somehow exclaimed as having been built by the ancient Egyptians, any actual, literal explanation of how this was actually done has never been provided. Not only is academic opinion severely lacking any logical understandings as to the construction of these sites, they seemingly attempt to ignore, and in some cases conceal, additional controversial anomalies they simply cannot understand. Enormous stone megaliths are hidden all over Giza, and especially around the base of the Great Pyramids.
Look at this, absolute beautiful. Look at that, that looks like an ancient can of V or something. Fucking, I knew it. They would have had cans back then.
And not only were...
Why couldn't old mate taking the photo have gone, you know what, let's move that, because... Then again, he's probably trying to say, look, fucking disrespectful cunts.
These buildings adorned with incredibly hard granite, but also basalt, a similarly tough stone, and another which would be near impossible to have hewn with mere copper implements. Known as Giza's basalt floor, it is what many people now see as the smoking gun for evidence of advanced engineering having once been responsible for the construction of the site. Amongst the remaining fragments of the basalt floor is overwhelming evidence of ancient machinery, telltale precision signatures left on many stones, suggesting high technology was responsible for the shaping of Giza's enormous stones. Cut marks that could only have been left by high-speed disc cutting, striations, precise ridges, and countless other curious features have been thankfully left upon these stones.
Exactly right. And then what, we say that they made them with chisels and shit? Fuck off, cunt. Look at this here. It's almost like I'm thinking that's what they're trying to point out, not the crack in the middle. That groove is so nicely... You can't tell me you get that with some sort of chisel. Yeah, I guess you could if they're right and then tapping it in, but fucking...
And these surviving tool marks could one day be used to actually identify the technology once used to build the site.
Marks as well.
We now feel that the evidence to suggest that the modern attested and mass-published theories regarding the origins of the Giza Plateau, its age, and indeed its creators' past capabilities, is currently incorrect and is now overwhelming, and that it is only a matter of time before a revival of this past knowledge and indeed understandings again begins to flourish.
That's exactly right. A lot that we don't fucking know, that we guess we think, you all think, oh yeah, fucking yep, well, slaves, ropes, chisels, easy done. Nah. I'm going to have to split this one up because it's probably going to take a little while, so this will be part one. Stay tuned. Not going to be long.